Welcome to USMNT Weekly on the Total Soccer Show. It's our weekly foray into all things men's national team. On this episode, we're looking at some great American performances from the past week. We're checking in on a few US players who are now Mexico players, and we're heading to the next generation to take a look there as well. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, Taylor Rockwell. Hello, Taylor. How's you?
I am well, Ryan Bailey. Thank you for that lovely introduction. If you're watching us on YouTube, lovely to see you. And if you're not, it's Graham's fault.
Sure, hello, Graham Ruthven. We're having some slight technical difficulties. We hope that our conversation here will be broadcast to the masses, do we not?
Yeah, we're not entirely sure about that. First, this happens. Yesterday, FB ref disappeared. The internet is falling through our fingers, guys. How are we going to cope? Joe, how are you coping, frankly, from the FB ref news?
I'm not doing well, to be totally honest. You messaged this link in our Slack yesterday, which is basically that FB ref has taken away. Well, FB ref had taken away all of their advanced data that they were getting from a provider. And I texted, this is unironically a massive blow to my workflow, and I'm in distress, guys. This is not a good week for me.
Mm-hmm. Joe, does it mean you're going to have to get out an abacus and start writing on stone and stuff?
I'm going to have to start getting Graham to calculate all the XG values himself as he watches games. I mean, he's watching all the games anyway. It's just one extra step, but I didn't want to have him do that.
It's cool, guys. I'll collect it for us all. Just every game in the universe.
If there's going to be one of us that does that, it's going to be you. You know that, right?
Yeah.
You've got time. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, seriously, Graham.
Fine, I'll do it.
Very good. Thank you, GRF. Is that what we'll call you now?
Yeah, that works. Yeah.
Very good. Someone trademark that. Very good. All right, USMNT Weekly is here. Before we get into the action, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is the best way to support us. You'll get bonus episodes, bonus video, and access to our Discord server. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show, where our recordings are usually successful. Hopefully this one is too. Why don't we kick off proceedings, Taylor, with a little look back at the most recent round of games from the weekend and the USMNT stars who shone. We'll note that Tim Weah and Pat Adjumang were scorers at the weekend. Haji Wright scored the winner for Coventry against Millwall on Tuesday evening, doing the greater good of trying to not get Millwall into the Premier League next season. So, Taylor, where would you like to start?
I mean, that is really noble work on their part, but I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about Haji Wright without Graham's authorization first, so I will instead talk about the aforementioned Tim Weah, who does score a goal this past weekend against Angers, one of many goals for Marseille as they win 5-2, but it's a good if, not wholly self-created goal. It's basically a lifted pass back towards him. He's crashing the box. It's a good header from close range. He gets a good amount of power behind it for people who haven't seen it. But for me, the key thing there is just how involved in the attack he was. He gets a couple shots in this game. He is very involved in the attacking play. And so even though he is functioning as that right wing back in Marseille's system, or at least that's his kind of default positioning, he's still heavily involved in the attack, heavily involved in kind of patrolling that right flank and getting in behind defenses, but then also attacking centrally as he does here. So a good kind of combination of good stats, but overall a good performance for overall a good Marseille, who are now up to third and in the Champions League spots.
Yeah, I think Tim Weah is such a fascinating case right now because he hasn't had an especially productive season for Marseille. He hasn't been banging in goals and assists, but he never does, right? It's not really his game outside of maybe a few moments in World Cup qualifying for the U.S. last time around where he was quite influential for the U.S. when it came to those counting stats or key actions in the final third. It's not really his game, and I think Pochettino knows that at this point. And we're looking at all these things, I suppose, always through a World Cup lens because that's at least a big chunk of what this is all about. I'm wondering what Tim Weah's role is going to be for the U.S. this summer because I think we all sort of believe that he's going to be there, but is he going to be playing a whole lot? I don't have a lot of confidence in Tim Weah's positioning sort of in this team because if he's going to play, it seems like Pochettino has favored him playing wide, whether that's wide on the right or wide on the left. He's clearly more effective wide on the right. But Sergiño Dest is also more effective wide on the right. And I wonder how those players fit or if they don't, or if Poch doesn't rate Weah enough to want to shoehorn him into his team. I think a lot is on the table for Tim Weah ahead of this summer, and good performances and impactful ones in the final third are going to do a lot for him because I think he probably needs to raise his stock a little bit in Pochettino's estimations.
I would agree with that, but I also agree that I think given where his skill set lies, I'm not sure he is, or I'm pretty sure he is not an automatic starter. I'll say it that way. I think right now he is probably an impact sub and a player who can do different things if the team wants to change up their kind of default look, if they're trying to change things for a specific opponent, if they're trying to chase a game, maybe if they're trying to see a game out and keep the opposition defense honest. You bring in Tim Weah. I think he'll have a role in this team, but I don't think it's going to be a starter because, to your point, Joe, if Dest is in there, he's kind of doing a lot of the stuff that I think the system requires of a person out wide. So maybe it's Weah more central, more as a striker, or maybe it is a kind of change in approach later on in a game.
Very good stuff. Tim Weah, as we record, his team are hosting Liverpool in the Champions League as well. So we'll see if he gets some action there. Graham, who would you like to spotlight?
So it's been a while since we checked in on Big Pat, or certainly I checked in on Big Pat at Derby County, one of my favourites, along with Haji Wright. I guess I just love Champo strikers that play for the USMNT, apparently. But this feels like a good time to check in on Big Pat, because on Saturday, he scored arguably the biggest goal of his career to date, certainly of his Derby County career to date. It was a really good header from a cross into the box from the right side. It was against Preston North End. 10 minutes from the end of the game from Derby County. They are up near it in sort of playoff contention. They were battering the door down for the majority of the game. And it was a really good header. It was relatively close range, but he has to show good physicality and intent to get there ahead of the defender. He attacks it really well. And then he's got a little bit to do with the header. Like, he has to sort of flick it around the corner and get enough power on it to beat the goalkeeper. So even though it is from close range, I still thought it was a really nice header. And it was great to see the scenes afterwards when he was kind of like pushed to the front of the celebrations by his teammates, and he's sort of like jumping around with the fans. You know how players and managers now do that, kind of like jumping around. Sorry, did Jurgen Klopp start that? I'm not entirely sure. But
did he invent jumping, you were saying?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. That's a meme, right? Things that Liverpool Football Club invented. I see that on social media occasionally. But yeah, it was really nice to see, and it looks like Derby County fans have taken him to their hearts, which is nice. And I thought his all-round performance, he was more involved than I would have expected, meaning he had lots of touches of the ball. He had the sixth most touches of any player. And in the game, he was dropping deep and then looking to spin in behind, as we know he likes to do. I must talk about the sitter he misses in this game, because on another day, that's the big talking point out of this match, such as the life of a centre-forward. It's rolled across the box. It is pretty close to should-have-scored territory, not to irk Joe or anything, but I guess like maybe he was a little bit surprised that it reached him. There's a couple of bodies in front of him. Maybe that's the explanation. But nonetheless, he's leaning back and he scoops it over the bar from about 6 yards out. So that wasn't great. But looking at the numbers that I've got in front of me here, not an FP ref, I should note. No Derby County player won more aerial duels. He had the most shots, one of them over the bar from 6 yards out. And yeah, it's good news for Derby that Ajman is possibly finding form right now, because Carlton Morris, who has been their top scorer, he's out injured right now. And so Ajman, it looks like he's going to get the business end of the season. He's going to spearhead their playoff push. As I mentioned earlier, Derby going for for promotion through the playoffs. They're sixth in the Champo. They won on Tuesday night as well. Big Pat started that game against Charlton. That was a little bit less notable. But looking at this performance against Preston at the weekend, yeah, he looks to be in a relatively good place after a staggered start to life at Derby. Of course, he had that injury at the start of the season.
Feels like you filleted the positives out of that one, because you did mention missing a sitter and blazing one over from 6 yards out as well, Graham, to be fair.
He's in the right places. That's all that counts.
But for real, though.
Yeah, Joe couldn't bite his tongue.
Is he guaranteed or to be on the plane this summer? Is he?
I don't think so.
No.
Not guaranteed. I mean, right now, where would we place him? About third, fourth? That's sort of where we would have him in the. I mean, he's probably below Haji Wright, right? So it'd be Pepi, Balogun, Wright, and that's when you're starting to get to Ajman. So it depends how many strikers or forwards Poch is taken to the tournament. Whether he sees Wright as one of his wide players, I think the composition of the squad will decide whether Big Pat is going.
I would put his odds at like 40%. Of making the World Cup roster, where I think he has a very real chance, and Graham, you broke it down exactly right, where if Wright is going to be used as a part-time striker, a part-time left-sider, then I think there is probably a roster spot for another pure forward. I've completely come around, Graham, to your way of thinking on Pat Ajman, unless you've changed your mind, but I can't stop thinking about the U.S. trailing in a group stage game at the World Cup. Everything's gone wrong, right? Everything went wrong against Paraguay. I don't remember the order of games. It's the third game of the group stage against fill in the blank, and they need a result. I just can't shake this idea that I would like to have the option to bring on a giant striker who can shove dudes out of the way to do the business to Australia. Like, I can't get that idea out of my mind. So I would bring him. And I kind of hope Pochettino brings him. And I don't know, man. The more I think about it, the more I think that is like a great break glass in case of everything has gone to crap kind of situation for the U.S.
Counterpoint. Walker Zimmerman still exists.
True. It's a good point, Taylor. He might be next up on my list of players to do that job. So
Is it a good point? That's generous of you.
I'm a kind man. I try.
Ryan, have you turned on Big Pat? Is this what happens when you leave the great city of Charlotte?
No, he will always hold a special place in my heart. But I realise that he has his ups and his downs, shall we say, in terms of like quality of touch. And
Answer your question.
That sounds like a yes.
You just didn't bring those things up conveniently before. I see.
I think he's great. He seems like a super nice dude as well. So I'll say that much. Good luck to Pat in Derby. He's very close, Graham, to the UK's closest equivalent to Disney World, Alton Towers, there as well. So I bet he's having a lovely time.
That is what matters.
Yeah.
That'll get him on the plane.
Yeah.
For a person dressed suspiciously like Frank Lampard, you sure do have some negative things to say about Pat Adjumang.
Yeah, but seriously, though. Yeah, Pat Lampard did you there. Pat Lampard did? Oh, R.I.P. Frank Lampard, I meant to say... Oh, goodness me. Joe, do you have a player you'd like to pick?
I would love to pick a player for you all. Kevin Paredes is back, y'all. This kind of flew under my radar, but he are we good? I think we're good.
Ryan is bright red.
Just as well this isn't going on YouTube.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, YouTube odds are like 3%, I think, in the grand scheme of things. Kevin Paredes is back from Wolfsburg. He's played in their last 3 games, coming off the bench in all 3. He had 45 minutes in a 1-1 draw with Heidenheim over the weekend. This was his longest appearance yet. And he looked good in this game. So he has dealt, Kevin Paredes, before I get into the game, he's dealt with injury after injury. Almost throughout his whole career, which means we should not take too much of this too seriously. But he's been dealing with a foot injury, especially that's kind of been nagging him since he made the move to Wolfsburg in the first place. But he did get on the field on Saturday. He clearly used all the rehab time he needed, plus the winter break to kind of get back into things, and now it's returned since the winter break. And on Saturday, he was up to the speed of play, which is probably the most encouraging thing to me. He looks like he has his quickness and acceleration back, which were always really nice parts of his game. I think it made, in theory, it was going to make the transition to the Bundesliga quite easy when he moves from DC United. But we haven't seen that really play out just yet because of all those injuries. He changed his direction really well and did so in this game. In possession, clever on the ball, smooth when it comes to progressing it forward, loves to get forward himself. He was playing as basically a high-flying left back in this game, where he was playing as the left-sided defender, but he did get forward early and often, and even as he was getting forward early and often, he dutifully tracked back and got stuck in on some challenges, even though he's not the strongest guy out there. He's probably approaching the Brendan Aronson build, all things considered. I think in terms of improvements, his 1v1 dribbling was a little sloppy in this game. It wasn't bad, but I think there's room to improve there. And his crossing was inconsistent. But I don't think either one of those things are hugely surprising, given that the dude has barely played soccer in the last 2 years. Look, he's a good player. Like, I'm pretty convinced that if Kevin Paredes is healthy, he is going to be somebody worth watching when these U.S. rosters drop. Now, I don't think the World Cup's probably in the cards for him, because Jedi Robinson is clearly the best left back in the pool, and Max Arston is a favorite of Pochettino, and I think brings something to the table as well. I don't think that's totally unwarranted. But this might end up being a next cycle thing, but getting Kevin Paredes back is, I think, really helpful for the U.S. because they need more talent. And Paredes is a versatile player who can technically play on either side as a winger. I think his best position is as a left back or a left wing back, and the U.S. pretty much always needs dudes like that.
Excellent stuff. Good little depth piece there. Thank you very much, Joe. Josh Sargent, by the way, is the updates that he's just iced out on the bench at the moment?
That's the update.
He's been bomb squadded.
Yeah, he's been bomb squad, which is still a cool name for when you've done something that somebody doesn't like. Bomb squad. I like it.
To which he responded, "Joke's on you guys. I've been in this position with the national team for like 5 years."
There you go.
He knows it well.
At least Norwich didn't. They suffered without. Oh wait, they scored 5 goals without. Actually, yeah, scrap that.
Leverage.
Never mind. All right, excellent stuff. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we've got some USMNT news and notes, including a check-in on Pellegrino Matarazzo and some players who are making one-time switches or have done so already. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to USMNT Weekly. Let's go to is it Basque Country? Sociedad the Basque Country? I think
that's
it is,
right.
isn't it? Very good. Woo! Almost got my Spanish autonomous regions mixed up there, Joe. That could have been an error. Real Sociedad, of course, they are coached by Pellegrino Matarazzo at the moment. He's been there for a few match days so far, played a handful of games, including, Joe, a win over Barcelona in the most recent round of games. So how's Matarazzo ended up there? How's he getting on?
Strong, convincing stuff in that win over Barcelona, as Graham talked about on the weekend review. Not fortunate at all. That's sometimes what it takes to beat the big guns, right? So I don't begrudge Sociedad that at all. Matarazzo, as you mentioned, Ryan, has been around for a few match days now in La Liga. He's had a really, really good record so far. And it's early days, and managers only matter so much, et cetera, et cetera. This is all notable because he's the first American coach to ever coach in La Liga, which is quite cool. For those that maybe don't know Matarazzo's background, most probably do, but some don't, because he sort of took an untraditional path to be where he is now, at least for an American to be up in the highest levels of the global game. He's born in New Jersey, played soccer in Colombia, at Colombia, different from in Colombia, ended up playing in the lower levels in Germany, and then just kind of picked up coaching from there. And so he just stayed in Europe, by and large, and crossed paths with Julian Nagelsmann, and then joined his staff at Hoffenheim, then goes and coaches Stuttgart as the head coach, then gets the Hoffenheim job. And so he's had some Bundesliga jobs before, has had also talks with U.S. Soccer, at least according to the man himself, about the USMNT job, and basically just said that it didn't work out. Now he's in Spain. So he's had a really impressive coaching career for an American. What I wanted to ask you, Graham, about all this, as Sociedad are doing a bit better. They're now ninth in the league, 5 points from relegation. They were only 2 points from relegation when he took over. They've played Barca and Atleti and got results in both of those games. They've progressed in the Copa del Rey. How big of a job is the Sociedad job? Because that, I think, is the thing that I don't know quite how to contextualize. Obviously, it's not one of the big three, but where does this stand, in your mind, at least in the La Liga hierarchy, as far as jobs are concerned?
It's like Villa in the Premier League. Like, they're definitely not one of the sort of the Barcelonas or Real Madrid or Atleti, but they're in that next tier below, along with, I guess, Valencia traditionally, although they've not been up near the top of the table for a while. An Athletic Club, and Villarreal, even though they are quite a small club, they punch above their weight at near the top of the table consistently. So yeah, it's a big job for Matarazzo to get. I have to say the reaction to him getting that job at the time from La Real fans wasn't the warmest. It wasn't the coldest either. I don't want to imply that there's been protests against his appointment or anything, but Michel had been linked with that job, and I think a lot of fans saw him as like the dream appointment. The other piece of context here is that Real Sociedad are moving on from the Imanol era. He was there for 7 years, for such a long time. They hired Sergio Francisco for the start of this season. Didn't go so well. They fired him in December, and so Matarazzo's like the second successor to Imanol. And so I think that's made things quite tricky. Like, this is a squad that's been moulded in the image of another coach, and he's having to pick things up midway through the seathem. And as you said, Joe, like, he's gotten off to a good start. 2 wins and a draw from his first 3 league games. I've watched 2 of those games. One of them being the win over Barcelona on Sunday, which obviously was a little bit lucky. But in terms of the setup, at least in the 2 games that I watched, and this might not translate to games where La Real are expected to attack and the onus is on them to have the ball, but he's gone with more of a sort of 4-4-2 shape, whereas previously, Francisco anyway, he was using like a single striker and then packing out the midfield with maybe 5, or like a 4-1-4-1, I guess. And that has had a lot of success in allowing La Real to pressure the ball from the front. So it's been like Oyarzabal as a centre forward and then someone else alongside him. And that is the other thing. Oyarzabal has been asked to stay a lot more central. He's not been asked to roam as much. Like, under Imanol, Oyarzabal was basically told you can go wherever you want on the field. And it seems like Matarazzo wants him to stay as more of sort of like a penalty box presence. And the knock-on of that has been Gonzalo Guedes, who was a bit of a bust for La Real before Matarazzo came in. I think he certainly scored against Barcelona. I think he scored in another game as well in this run of 3 games since Matarazzo came in. And it seems to me that he's just got like a lot more space to drive into without having Oyarzabal coming over and congesting that area. So I think in terms of some of the individuals, you can see the impact that Matarazzo's having already. But obviously it's only 3 games in, and we'll need to wait and see what the sort of longer term impact is.
3 games plus Copa del Rey, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Because I enjoyed one of the questions for him was, can you envision a better start than 7 points from a possible 9? To which he responded, yes, 9. And I like that sort of directness and practicality. He has a degree in applied mathematics. I learned that from a Sid Lowe write-up about the Barcelona game, which kind of blew my mind. What's that?
That's how he knew the 9 thing, wasn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, that's it.
3
That's the applied
3
mathematics right there.
3.
Woo, Colombia. But I think it's a really interesting appointment because on paper it seems like it's just destined to be a disaster. it's an American who has no La Liga experience, who does not speak Spanish, coming in to a team like steeped in tradition, and a club steeped in tradition. And he seems to have hit the ground running and have been a very sort of positive figure. He gives his team talks with a variety of translations and subtitles, so I think everybody can understand exactly what he's asking of them. But he also seems to have simplified his messages to certain players so that communication is still prioritized and players know exactly what's being asked of them. A number of players, former and current, I saw mention that he is a big dude. He's 6'2", I believe, and just like a more sizable fellow, but doesn't kind of carry himself in that way. Like, certainly has an edge to him, but is apparently very like kind of quiet and humble and very focused on details. Does a lot of like video analysis, data analysis. I guess he will also be sad about FBref no longer being what it was. But it just seems like he has kind of like brought in a lot of kind of common sense elements, and they seem to be working really, really well. So it's a credit to him, and it's a credit to Sociedad.
Can I say something that might be taken the wrong way? I hope it isn't. But Matarazzo in Europe, I don't think is seen as an American coach, and so I think he might benefit from not having that very unfair burden. I should say. But we all saw how Bob Bradley was treated in the Premier League and how other American coaches have been treated in Europe. And Matarazzo, partly I guess because of his name, but I think more crucially because of the way he's come through coaching, as Joel outlined, like coming through Germany, doesn't have any of that baggage attached to him, or doesn't have much. Like, I've had conversations with people and they've been like, he's American? Like, they genuinely didn't know that he was an American coach. So I'm hopeful that kind of gives him just a little bit more freedom to actually do that job without that burden.
At the same time, like, born in the U.S., goes to an American university, starts his playing career in the United States. Like, on some level, is that just because of his name? Like, if he were named Bob Bradley, do you think it would be a lot more? Okay, so we just need, it's the Allardyce thing, right? The Sam Allardyce quote about if my name were Allardyce, everybody would want me. Like, so maybe that's it. But Bob Bradley just needs to diversify that name a little bit.
Yeah. But also bear in mind, Europeans do regard Wayne, New Jersey as one of the most cultural epicenters of the United States. It's basically like Florence, like walking around there.
I was trying to remember.
Or just you?
Maybe.
Is Matarazzo the reason that came up earlier in the week, or is this just our second non-connected Fountains of Wayne, New Jersey reference?
What did you like
he
to
and Queen
know?
Latifah famously from Wayne, New Jersey, Taylor, as you'll know
course.
from Monday's episode.
And also Greg Olson.
Greg
I learned
Olson,
that
too.
from a certain vested podcast host.
I can't believe we're having this discussion for the second time in 3 days.
Very good. Well, Matarazzo obviously doing a good job so far. Big shoes to fill at Sociedad. Those shoes famously once filled by David Moyes, of course. Remember that time when he was in the stands when he got sent off eating potato chips at Sociedad? What a time that was to be alive, to witness that. Wonderful stuff indeed. Let's move on to a couple of US internationals who've made some one-time switches or are perhaps in the process of doing so. Brian Gutierrez and Richard Ledezma. Joe, can you fill us in on the story here?
Yeah, they were both called up by Mexico. That's kind of the short story here. They both played for the U.S. before. Richard Ledezma has played for the U.S. Brian Gutierrez has played for the U.S. There's a bit of confusion here and a bit of conflicting reporting about whether or not Brian Gutierrez has had to file a one-time switch in order to play for Mexico. What I do know is that they're both going to be in this camp, and they have the potential to both be playing for Mexico in these January camp friendlies. If we never see these guys play for the U.S. again, I think Gutierrez is the real loss. I'm a big fan of his game, and I think he's exactly the kind of player that the U.S. don't have enough of, frankly. I still remember vividly the March Nations League struggle bus game against Panama that kind of caused Poch to throw some things and change everything that he was doing basically with the national team. Brian Gutierrez was rooted to the bench in that game as the U.S. couldn't break down a low block. Now, Gio Reyna was as well. Poch just didn't bring on somebody to help break down that block, which made zero sense to me. But Gutierrez, I think, is the kind of player who can help a team do that stuff. He's a guy who can create chances against a lower block. He's also a guy that can deal with pressure on his back and play and create in an up-tempo, more end-to-end game. And there's a lot of those in Chicago last year. He had 9 goals and 3 assists as a 21-year-old in MLS last year. He made Chicago $several million in his transfer to Chivas earlier on in this window. The dude is a good player. Now, defensively, he has some shortcomings, and I think that is been limiting to him at this stage of his career. Otherwise, he would not have been playing in MLS at age 21. But, man, the U.S. has got a lot of guys who can put in some hard yards, and I don't know how many dudes they have that can pick locks. And Gutierrez is one of those guys. Yeah. It's frustrating to me that he didn't get more shine from Greg Berhalter, who I guess then shipped him off from Chicago, or Pochettino. But it looks like, as things stand now, that Gutierrez's time in the U.S. setup is done.
That was the reason I was booing. Like Richie Ledezma, I don't know how to feel about losing Richie Ledezma because we just haven't seen him, right? Like he got that one cap back in 2020, but other than that, he hasn't been involved.
You don't watch Guadalajara every weekend? You're not a Chivas guy?
No.
He's got like 5 assists this season already, and everybody knows how important and meaningful those are.
I mean,
we must have watched him a bit when he was in the PSV team in the second half of last season.
My view on Ledezma, just very, very briefly, is that he's a useful right back and would have been good desk cover. Like I think he's more creative than any of the other right back options that the U.S. have. He is not saucy like Dest is, but he is somebody that can play a final ball, whether that is from the right half space or from a little bit wider on the right. I think he's a good guy to have in the pool, but he's not breaking my heart that Ledezma can't play for the U.S.
I guess what I'm trying to say is like he doesn't feel like a loss because I kind of suspected he was already lost.
Yeah.
Like he hadn't been involved in this team for a long time. Maybe he hadn't made a final decision, but I think we all saw the direction of travel there. Guti is a disappointment because, I'll speak for myself, I was invested in his development as a potential US player. So naturally, now if he's going to play for Mexico, I'm not going to be as invested as much. And so that kind of like stops that interest to an extent for me. So he's just a fun player, and I wish he would have been an option for the US in the years to come.
it is strange for both of them, I think. For Ledezma, because we assumed this was happening, but then he's not on Mexico's provisional Gold Cup roster, but is on the United States' provisional roster, which is maybe them just trying to show, like, hey, you're still of interest. But as I said many times last year, it made no sense to me that with Dest out, you don't call up the guy who is deputizing for Dest at club level. So maybe he had already made that choice, or maybe he had just kind of politely turned down the offer. And then for Gutierrez, I would have been surprised, except that he now plays for Chivas, as does Richie Ledezma, who have, like, historically the policy that you have to, like, be a Mexican citizen or a Mexican to play for that club. I think you can be a dual national, and I think you can be a naturalized Mexican player, but they have that policy, and so I think it's not then surprising. I was heartened by the fact that, like, a lot of the Chicago posts I saw were very positive, very enthusiastic and supportive, and a few were kind of disappointed to not have him play for the United States, but none were, like, angry in that decision, which is kind of, I think, progress for the U.S., because we've at times been very mad when dual nationals choose another country to represent. And a final thing on this one, like, at the risk of going into politics, if you don't want to hear about politics, you can earmuff it. I just imagine at this point in time, it's a little bit harder if you're a dual national to choose the United States over, say, Mexico or a South American nation or a Central American nation. Maybe there's always going to be a practicality to that one, in that the United States is more likely to go to a World Cup more consistently. But I just think also, like, proudly saying I'm choosing to represent the United States right now is maybe a harder ask than it's been at other points in history.
Can I say something that might be controversial and maybe tedious, but I don't like the whole concept of a one-time switch. I don't understand it, because choosing a national team, my understanding traditionally is once you choose your national team at senior level, you're locked in. And also the idea of international soccer, there's a sort of, national, there's a jingoistic element to it of representing a country. And I get this, dual nationals, I get this. I could represent 3 different countries, for example. But I just think that the one-time switch kind of it stands against what international soccer is in many ways.
But so I hear that, Ryan, and this international soccer is challenging in this sense, particularly in the modern age. Like, Scotland is currently going through it right now with Harvey Barnes, who I would take in a flash, but other fans don't feel that the same way as me. But it's designed for players who, like, for example, Erling Haaland, who, Ryan, you keep reminding us was born in England,
Correct.
Can't just file a one-time switch now to go and play for England. So it's not designed for it to be manipulated in that way. It's for players who have had a decision at one point and who can reasonably argue that now they would make a different decision. And so I can kind of understand why it's allowed. But it's a difficult discussion. There's no easy answers.
Yeah. I mean, could you not reasonably argue that Erling Haaland could make a decision to make a different decision as well?
Well, not after like 100 goals for Norway, though.
I don't know. It's interesting. Anyway, that's.
I think from every dual national I've ever talked to, like, player or just general person with multiple citizenships or multiple backgrounds, like, I think it is a very fluid thing, that it's not like one or the other. You can feel one way on one day, one way the next. And I imagine if you are a youngster coming through in England and you're kind of, like, thrust into the England system and then maybe you have a bad performance and suddenly you're cast aside, there might be a feeling of like, well, did they ever actually care about me as a person, or do they just want kind of my individual talents? And what does that say about the national team? And then another national team comes calling and it's very supportive and inclusive. I don't know. Maybe you have a different identity at that point, or you kind of change that loyalty. You have different kind of ideas. I think a natural evolution makes sense to me, even if Ryan, the Brit who lives in America, has hard and firm rules about where people should live and represent.
Yeah. Okay. I withdraw my statement.
And also Italy for that brief period of time as well.
Thank you for adding that in. All right. Anything else for this section? How about some transfer updates? So anything happening in the window besides the aforementioned Josh Sargent? Ricardo Pepi, is he still Fulham bound? Joe?
That is sort of the one update, I suppose, after we did that long transfer a couple of segments last week. I think we all kind of dismissed the idea of Pepi moving in this window after he broke his arm. And I guess I just wanted to clarify, according to reporting from Fabrizio Romano, it's still on the table. Whether it's Fulham or another Premier League club, Romano's reporting that there are still legitimate offers, or at least interest in Pepi from the Premier League, despite the arm injury, where they see now as those clubs see this window as an opportunity to get Pepi maybe before his price goes up even more or before something changes. So I had thought, okay, we're probably going to have to table this for the summer. If Pepi's going to miss 2 months, who's going to pay for him now? Might just wait until the summer window. It seems like clubs are thinking differently, and that seems notable for Pepi in his future.
The fact that Fulham are still in for him just makes me like this move even more. Like it seems like they don't see him as sort of like a quick fix solution in the way that West Ham would. It doesn't feel like if he goes into a club now, he could be burnt out there by the summer and they replace him in the next transfer window. Feels like Fulham have legitimate interest in him to an extent that they are willing to sign an injured player because they see the medium to long term potential. So I think Fulham would be a good landing spot for Ricardo Pepi. There's a debate to be had, kind of like a broader debate of whether he's ready for just like the general Premier League level. But if he's going to the Premier League, I think a stable club like Fulham that play quick transition football suit him in that sense. And he's not just going to be thrown in the deep end. Yeah, I like it.
The deep end of the pool at Craven Cottage, you mean, Graham?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you had to put a trash bag on the cast at least.
Yeah, got to be careful with that arm.
Got to be very careful. Very good. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to the next gen and looking at the players we're excited about who are up-and-coming teens. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to USMNT Weekly. We're going next gen, everybody. We're looking at some of the players we're most excited about who are coming through. Some young teenage players to focus on. Who wants to go first? Taylor wants to go first. Taylor.
I do. I want to bring up this youngster that no one ever talks about her or has any hard feelings about. It's Peyton Miller. I don't know if anyone's heard of him. Just kidding. I'm not talking about him because I'm assuming that Joe Lowry is going to. Instead, I will talk about... I guess this is kind of like a cheat code because it feels like he is 23 for how long we've talked about him. But let's talk Kevin Sullivan, shall we? 16 years old, 14 appearances for the Union already. Very likely to moving to Manchester City when he turns 18. Like, I think can actually move now, but it requires... I think he can move to Europe now, so he could move to one of City's other clubs and then move to City when he's 18. But... has gotten rave reviews and then some by the City scouts who watched him. I almost made that an awkward portmanteau. And it seems like he is destined to follow in his siblings' footsteps. I think he has 3 siblings, actually, who have been various levels of footballer. But it seems like he is going to continue to make appearances and get minutes for the Union while awaiting that move to City. And by all accounts, is a player that... is near the top of the like height meter and maybe is approaching like all-time levels with certain groups of fans.
Yeah. I think the Kevin Sullivan shout's a good one, Taylor, and I do think he's in line for more minutes this year than last year in Philadelphia. I think myself and a lot of other people thought that he was going to play more for them last year, and that just didn't really happen when it all came down to it. But I think part of that was maybe earning some of Bradley Carnell's trust. Part of that was he did... there's been a lot going on for Kevin Sullivan, I suppose, between youth national teams, between the Man City stuff. And so maybe this year, is going to be a bit more settled for him, all things considered. I found this stat from Ryan O'Hanlon in a piece for ESPN, and Ryan does amazing work all the way across the board. I was sort of disappointed last year that we didn't see more of Kevin Sullivan. And then I read this line and wasn't so disappointed anymore. The quote is, across every league in the Stats Perform database, just one player who is 16 or younger, Leicester City's Jeremy Monga, has played more professional minutes than Sullivan's 449. So that did put things in perspective for me, where he is playing an obscene amount of minutes for someone of his age, even though I think we're all always antsy to see someone get more. I think this year we're going to see more. I really do, as he continues to mature. part of that is helped by Quinn Sullivan being injured, and Quinn Sullivan's going to miss most, if not all, of this season. I would have to imagine with that long-term injury he suffered late last year. Cavan's going to play the same spot in the 4-2-2 that Bradley Carnell runs, and the Union trusts their academy kids to play games. So when they think he's ready, he's going to get time, and I think that could be this year.
You don't hear the name Cavan a lot, by the way. Just looked it up. It's Irish, means hollow or handsome. Why can it mean both? Interesting.
Hollow or handsome? Hollow. No, I got nothing. That's odd.
Yeah. County Cavan in Ireland. That's where it comes from. There you go. The more you know, kids. 1323rd most popular name in 2008. He was born in 2008.
You're full of
I'll
so
talk
much
now.
useful
How about that?
information.
Go it.
Is that an FB ref?
It was.
I'll toss out two other names from that US U17 World Cup team that I'm very much watching at the moment. The first is Matthias Albert, who plays for Borussia Dortmund's youth setup.
Joe, you've already fallen victim to a youngster who now plays in Germany. So is it Mattis or is it Mathis? Because it could be either one. The American one would be more Mathis, right?
I was still wrong. It is Matisse. I know that for sure, and I just butchered it a second ago. Matthias Albert is this gentleman's name. It means hollow or handsome. He is 16 years old. He's in the Dortmund youth setup. I think he's a player that could conceivably debut before the end of the season, and if not this season, then the next season. So he is somebody sort of to hold some stock on. I think he might have been the U.S.'s best player at the U17 World Cup. I watched a decent amount of the U.S. at that tournament. Other smart soccer people who watched that tournament disagreed with me. So, I don't know. I suppose your mileage may vary on this take. But he is a dribbly winger, really. Cavan Sullivan's position is a little murkier. Like, is he a 10? Is he going to end up being a wide player? Is he a half-space guy? I don't know. Matthias Albert is clearly a dribbly kind of winger who's best wider in the half spaces. He played on the left side for the U.S. in that tournament, cutting in on his right foot. He's just more skilled and has better vision than most players his age, period. Whether that's in the U.S. pool or somewhere else. He is, I think, pretty widely regarded as, at his age group, the next best guy after Cavan Sullivan, and some people think he's better than Cavan Sullivan. I haven't seen quite enough to have a fully formed opinion there, but he's somebody to watch. And then one other name who I know will get minutes at the... Yeah,
Joe,
Taylor,
before you move on, sorry to interrupt your hyping. The one thing I think is really interesting with Matthias Albert, because I read some of that same stuff and some talk about how he could make his debut, how he could start getting minutes. The issue that I read is that he is a very conventional winger. He's right-footed but can play on either side. But Dortmund not really using conventional wingers right now this season. So the question is, where does he fit in and how do they kind of mold him into a player they can use? Or do they wait and kind of let him get loaned out in the summer? So if he does break through, if he does get some minutes, I think that shows you already what his talent is, that they're finding a way to get him in.
Yeah, I totally agree, Taylor. And one thing we know about Dortmund as a club is that if they have a talented youngster that they really rate, they're going to find a way to play those players because that's revenue for them. Yeah, exactly.
United for 120 million pounds. Yeah.
And it goes great for everybody, especially Dortmund and nobody else. Albert is definitely a guy to watch. Another guy who was at that U17 World Cup team that I'm watching in MLS this year is Julian Hall. I know, Ryan. Sorry, I'm not all the way back on the Nymphasia train just yet. Julian Hall plays for the New York Red Bulls. He is, I believe he's 17. I don't have his age in front of me. That is my bad. He should have a chance for a bigger role this year for a couple of reasons. First, he is like a very skillful possession-y kind of player, which has always been a bit awkward for the Red Bulls. John Tolkien has talked about this before. He's talked with me about this before, about how you do all this cool on-ball stuff as you're developing as a kid, and then you get to the first team and they throw that out the window, right? Now that Julian de Guzman's talking about reshaping the team's tactical sort of style of play, Michael Bradley's in this team, we are going to see the Red Bulls have more of the ball this year. And Michael Bradley also coming up from like 5 months, I suppose. That's it. But as the MLS Next Pro guy in the Red Bull system, he knows these young players, and I would presume rates them higher than some of his predecessors. Hall was already a guy who played in a bunch of games last year, although didn't start very many games. But he is a crafty forward who's sort of positionless. Is he a 9? I don't think that's maybe going to be his best position. I think he's probably best as the second forward in a front 2, which is just not a really common role. But he could play in the half spaces. He could play underneath. He could play as the 9. He's just a skillful, savvy player. Uses his body well, has good vision, good combination play in tight spots, moves well off the ball. He kind of plays smarter and older than you would expect a 17-year-old to play. He's probably going to play the most of any of the 3 guys that I've said at this stage. And he's really, really talented. Maybe not quite as high of a ceiling as Cavan or Matisse, but a really, really good young player.
Excellent stuff. I did think you were going to go down an Nymphasia Batumas lane there. Joe obviously started at the Under-17 World Cup as well.
Stard is carrying some weight there, but he does seem like a good young player.
I think he scored, didn't he? Scored a goal or two. Pretty sure.
Yeah,
Start in Ryan's eyes.
Yeah.
Why not?
That's what matters.
Well, he's very exciting talent. Obviously, he's a Charlotte FC player. He made a couple of first team
Oh, is
appearances.
he?
Yeah. Good lad.
Until
as
he
well.
moves to Derby County, and then he'll be dead to you.
Then I'll call out his accuracy with startling precision. Yeah, so obviously, I when I was working for Charlotte FC, he was 12 years old in the youth setup. He was playing for the under-15s at 12, playing up a few years, obviously, and he was the name that everyone was talking about as a standout player, and you could see on the training ground he was a cut above. So I'm very excited about him and what the future lies for him as well. Graham, who are you picking?
So the player that I took a look at is maybe a little bit more established than the kids that have already been mentioned. We've had 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds. My guy's an 18-year-old, and it's Xavier Gozo, who is just someone who's been on my radar for a while, as I just like watching him play. I'm not going to pretend that I'm crushing USA youth games on the regular, but I did watch some of the U20 World Cup last year. And obviously MLS is a league that I watch regularly. And Gozo is someone I'm really excited to see develop over the next few years. Now, he did have a bit of a breakout season at RSL last year already. That in itself builds a bit of hype about him because obviously of how successful RSL have been in developing young players. And it does feel like when Luna eventually moves on, like Gozo's going to be their next guy, RSL. He's already kind of growing into that role. Some of his moments last year in MLS, really memorable. There was an overhead kick against, it was either against the Galaxy or LAFC, I can't quite remember which one, but he had 7 goal contributions in 1,800 minutes. And I find his game really fun because he's a dribbler. When you get him going on the right wing, he can isolate a defender, he can drive at them, he's really quick to attack with the ball at his feet. He has scored. He's also scored a couple of goals cutting off the left side as well, so he does have that adaptability to both sides. There was a really nice goal against Vancouver last season where I think it was in like the first 60 seconds of a game, where he gets into a good position in transition on the left side, and then he kind of like snaps a shot back into the near post, and that was off the left side. So really exciting player. He's played for the middle for RSL as well. There's just a lot to be excited about for both club and country, including the fact that his middle name is Didier, after Didier Drogba, which I remember reading that last year, and I thought I'd bring it up again today. So yeah, Gozo slightly more established, but I think we're going to see him grow from this point on.
That rules, Graham. I already loved Xavier Gozo. I didn't know that I needed to love him anymore. I think, anyway, he's going to be an every game starter for RSL this year. And I mean, maybe there's a little less to him than that this season, but he started a bunch of games last year. I think played 1,800 minutes, right? And so it did play a big role. My sneaky RSL take is that Xavier Gozo is going to be a better player than Diego Luna. So I actually don't know that he's that far off of that right now. He's not going to be at the World Cup, any of that stuff. But he's a really good player. I think RSL rate him exceedingly highly, and they think he can give them real minutes either as a 9, sort of playing maybe as a second forward at times, I suppose, or off that right side. I like him a lot. I think he's really, really good.
Nicely done. Does anyone know what Didier means in French, by the way? I've got some ideas.
Is it hollow?
Could be. Could be. Very good.
Handsome?
Oh, one of those.
Imagine if your name meant handsome, by the way. That's a lot of pressure, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Good old Captain Sullivan. Wonderful stuff. That is USMNT Weekly. Thank you very much, Lisa, for joining us on this one. Possibly watching it on YouTube. We'll see how the technology goes on that one. Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed for your contribution, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to think of a name that does mean handsome, and I'm struggling with it. So maybe hollow is the way.
Ethan
Casper
Hawke?
Schmeichel. Ethan Hawke, yeah,
Handsome
that
Hawke?
works as well.
Handsome Hawk, that's the one.
Yeah, that's it. Peter Schmeichel's on good form on the CBS broadcast this week. I'll just say that as well. And he is still very handsome. Indeed. Graham Ruffin, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey.
Joe Lowry, thank you, sir.
Hey, thanks, Ryan.
And listener, thank you to Moses for joining us on the feed. We'll be back very shortly. But for now, bye.